I've had this idea cooking in my head, and I'm feeling something that I think a lot of people who are serious about investing have already experienced. And I'm feeling burnt out investing for retirement. Before anyone panics, no, I'm not selling all my investments. I would have to be really spun up in the head to do something like that. I'm still doing all the things I've preached on this channel, but after spending most of my 20s aggressively investing, maxing out my 401k for about 4 years, and just starting to max out my Roth IRA, I've started asking myself a very simple question. At what point do you stop sacrificing today for a version of yourself that might not exist for another 30 or 40 years? Because if you're not careful, personal finance can turn into an endless cycle of delayed gratification. It's all about saving for retirement, all about saving for the next milestone, saving for that financial independence number, saving for a future life that always seems just a little bit further away. And while there's absolutely value in planning ahead like that, I have realized that there's also a danger in becoming so obsessed with your future life that you forget how to actually live your current one. For years, my focus was simple. I invested as much as possible, and I built my wealth as fast as I could. I gave my future self every advantage that I could in my 20s. And honestly, I don't regret that approach at all. It helped me build a strong financial foundation that most people my age don't have. But lately, I've started realizing that money isn't just a tool for financial freedom. It is also a tool for creating experiences now, reducing stress, and improving my life. So, in this video, I want to talk about why I've been rethinking my relationship with retirement investing, why I've started shifting my financial priorities towards near term goals, and how I'm trying to find a healthier balance between preparing for the future without completely sacrificing the present. Part of the reason I've been thinking about this lately is because life is starting to look a lot different than it did when I was 22 or 23 years old. Back then, my primary financial goal was simple. Again, I just invested as much money as humanly possible, every dollar extra. Literally, I just turned up my 401k contributions. I had my HSA maxed out. And most recently, I started maxing out my Roth IRA. I really wasn't thinking about all the things that naturally start showing up as you move and progress through your late 20s. I was just focused on just building my wealth through investing. I'm incredibly thankful that I did that though. Today, I've built an investment portfolio worth over $300,000, and that did not happen by accident. It happened because I spent years of consistently investing, and it really wasn't fun all the time. I'm going to tell you guys that. Even when my friends were just spending money more freely than I was just investing for this retirement that seems so far away. In fact, I still think that for most young people, doing exactly what I did is the best approach. I would strongly recommend aggressively investing in your 20s for your retirement because it is just one of the best financial decisions that you can make. Those early years are so critical for the compounding effect to really work for you later. And it's so much easier to get ahead in your 20s than it is to spend your 30s and 40s trying to play catch up. But now, here's the twist that's been sitting in the back of my mind lately. A huge percentage of that $300,000 is tied up in retirement accounts. It's money that, for the most part, I can't access until I'm 59 and a half years old. That is great from a retirement perspective, and I've made so many videos about going through my retirement numbers and how I think I'm probably going to need $8 million dollars to have a comfortable retirement. But there are just days when I'm working these long 12-hour shifts in engineering. I'm just dealing with project deadlines, problems with my projects in the field, and I find myself thinking, man, I'm working really hard today for a life that is just decades away. Like, what's the point? And maybe this video is just coming at the end of a tough stretch of work, but maybe I'm also just feeling a little burnt out. I don't know. I don't think I'm alone in this feeling, though. There comes a point where you've done a lot of the things right financially, like just building a solid foundation. And then you just start to wonder whether these dollars that you're just sending off to retirement accounts are worth it if you're not going to touch them in 30 years, right? You start asking yourself whether some of this money should be creating value in your life today, more than it is. And for me, that's saving for my upcoming wedding, saving for the kid fund, saving for another car, saving for a down payment on a house. I've talked about these near term goals in a recent video, but these are just something that I think I'm going to have to ramp up my near term savings for. And one of the reasons I'm even able to have this conversation with myself is because I went so hard on retirement investing in my early 20s. I planted those seeds early. I built the foundation. Now I'm in a position where I can start thinking about balance. I really think you have to grind first before you think about balance. And it's one of the biggest misconceptions in personal finance that everyone says, oh, I want to live this balanced life of investing and just having all this lifestyle inflation in my 20s. No. If you go blow all your money on stupid stuff in your 20s, you will not be able to be talking about a conversation like this because your retirement account balances are going to be nowhere near where they need to be. I want you guys to all grind in your 20s, build up retirement accounts past certain milestones, and then be able to have a balanced conversation once you put in the work first about whether or not you should let off the gas a little bit on retirement accounts and start saving in high yield savings accounts or brokerage accounts for an early retirement. So I'm curious if any of you watching are in a similar spot. Maybe you've spent years doing everything right financially. Maybe your retirement accounts are booming, your net worth is increasing. Yet at the same time, there's that small voice in the back of your head asking whether you're postponing too much of your life for a future that has not arrived yet. If you've been feeling that lately, let me know down in the comments. And that leads me into the second point of this video, which is the reason I'm feeling this shift in my investing game plan. That is because the future for me is just becoming real than it ever has been before. And what do I mean by that? For the most part, in my early 20s, retirement was the big goal. That was the finish line I was running towards. But now, like I alluded to earlier in this video, I have all these major life milestones that are showing up that are much closer than I think. The wedding that my fiance and I are saving for, the possibility of kids in the future, and all the expenses that come along with starting a family. I gotta have liquidity for that. At some point, we're probably gonna need another vehicle. That also requires liquidity. And a lot of people my age, there's still the goal, still the dream of eventually buying a house and putting together a meaningful down payment that I'm also trying to save for. And so you're going to need all this money in a high yield savings account. You can't have it all tied up in retirement accounts. These are probably some of the biggest and most important life events that I'm ever going to experience coming up probably in the next 5 years. When I think about my future, I don't picture myself at 60 years old sitting on a ridiculous retirement account. Now I throw out numbers like $8 million, but I truly think that that's not a lavish retirement in 2060. I don't want like 15 or $20 million. I just want enough to be comfortable. But I also want to take some food off the table, if you know what I mean. These are some of the things that matter to me just as much as retirement does for my near-term savings goals. And I want to be financially prepared for these moments. And unlike retirement, many of these again are just a few years away. Not saying that I have to have everything figured out for these to happen, but it'll relieve a ton of stress if I am financially prepared. I think for a long time, I viewed personal finance as a game where the goal was simply to maximize my net worth as quickly as possible. The bigger the account balances meant I was winning. But money is supposed to help you build the life that you actually want, whether that's now, 5 years, 30 years from now, or a combination of all of that. I'm trying to live the combination of all of that. I want a balanced life. And if the life I want includes a wedding, a home, children, family vacations, creating memories with the people I care about, that's why I want to start shifting my financial focus towards those goals. I see me right now as kind of like graduating into a new phase of life. My foundation has been built, and that is the most important part. The retirement accounts are growing, they're eating for me. Compounding interest is doing its thing. Now it's time to find the balance between taking care of the person I am right now and the person I'm going to be 30 years from now. So I know a lot of that can be repetitive at times, but you got to get the message here, guys. So, one takeaway I hope you guys get from this video is that you got to figure out what personal finance means for you. And you got to figure out how to use your money to build a life that you're excited about now and something that strives to keep you pushing towards the future. Your financial plan eventually is going to evolve as your life evolves. You have to be adaptable. The goals that mattered when you were 22 aren't necessarily the same goals you'll have at 27, 32, or 40 years old. It is okay if your priorities shift as long as you're making intentional decisions and not reacting emotionally. So I'm curious where you guys fall on this. Have you ever reached a point where you felt like you're saving so aggressively for retirement that you started questioning whether you were enjoying the present enough? Or are you still in that phase where you're trying to build the foundation as quickly as possible? Let me know and I'd love to provide my insight. As always, thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video and you want more honest conversations about investing, personal finance, career growth, and building wealth without losing sight of the life you're trying to build along the way, make sure to subscribe. I'll see you all in the next one. Peace.